Chapter 1. Character. I believe in the sacredness of a promise, that a man's word should be as good as his bond, that character, not wealth or power or position, is of supreme worth. J.D. Rockefeller. What would you give to accomplish your life's one greatest dream? What if it meant spending your entire life working toward that accomplishment, then suddenly, staring you in the face, is the realization of that dream, that huge promise you once made to yourself to prove everyone wrong and make something of your talent? And what if, when the moment came for the realization of your goal, you discover it is morally misaligned with your life's true ambitions? I had one goal: to headline in Las Vegas. As an entertainer, I was on my way and fast, having already become one of the top one-man show acts in my state of Utah, building my celebrity and making all the right connections. I was well on my way. Within 3 years of beginning my career, I found myself sitting across the table from one of Las Vegas's billionaire hoteliers, who was offering me the fulfillment of my dream. Let's be fair, it wasn't exactly the whole shebang, not right away at least. What I was being offered was to have professional managers, producers, writers, and real showbiz legends take over my career, to mentor and mold me into the performer they needed at their soon-to-be-open mega hotels. As my wife and I drove the 6+ hours to Las Vegas in our Subaru Outback from my grandma's second home in Park City, Utah, which we'd been renting for 3 years, we knew this was our dream coming true. The plan was first to have me go from one casino to another throughout the western United States and perfect my act. We had seen the shows they had produced, and they were the best between Lake Tahoe, Southern California, and Las Vegas. They would lock me in for life. I was to commit my career to their care and tutelage. The vision was drawn before me. Your name will be on taxis, on billboards, at the airport, and on the strip. You just have to listen to our advice, perform what we tell you to, and you'll become the next Danny Gans of Las Vegas. Danny Gans was my hero, a Christian family man working the strip in his own showroom, making over $100 million on his latest contract. Someone who wasn't a household name, but once you saw him, you knew he was the greatest performer you'd ever seen, and he became unforgettable. A clean show for families. The path was possible. Yet sitting there with the lawyers and casino brass, my wife and I flipped through the contract and realized a problem. Las Vegas's family-friendly 1990s theme attempt was no longer what it used to be. In order to make it now, mid-2004, as a non-celebrity in the pre-America's Got Talent era, you would need to make your show what had become the new order in Vegas as of 2003. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. As a boy who grew up in a religious home very devout to my faith, I was living a standard of morality and integrity and expected the same of the family that I was establishing. Therefore, with this contract, I was presented a life-changing decision. Do the show necessary for me to make it on the strip and make a windfall of money, become famous, accomplish my dream, or hold my ground. Significant fear washed over me. I knew this was my moment. I thought there could be future moments, but I knew this was the big one. This would be the ultimate culmination of everyone telling me throughout my entire life that all of my dreams and goals were unreachable, unattainable, and I would finally be able to tell them where to go. This was the dream, the Vegas dream, that I had envisioned and worked for, and that would set us up for life. I was ecstatic for the change our lives would experience. I knew we would succeed and I would become world famous at such a young age and stage in my career. I knew my wife could quit her job. We would be secure and my performing aspirations would be realized. No more worrying about the next opportunity, if a check might clear, how I would feed my family. No more answering the doubts and questions of every single person as I had for years already regarding my validity, the justification for my hopes. I could just point at a billboard and tell them, yes, things have worked out. Tickets are only $100 per person if you'd like to come, but good luck getting a ticket. It's sold out every night. Boom! This is how I felt. Pure validation, vindication, victory. And then the reality hit as I realized what I would be trading and what could possibly happen if I fell into the patterns those before me had. From my knowledge of the industry and those enjoying the successes that I knew I would upon performing well, it was apparent I would need to fend off every physical and worldly addiction, habit, and downfall that none who went before me had successfully navigated. Even if those typical addictions weren't on my radar, they hadn't been on the checklist for my heroes either. And yet, they still succumbed. What of my family? With no children yet, we could create whatever we wanted whenever we wanted, this new little family of ours. Yet look at those already performing nightly. Not to judge their choices, but it was telling. No one was married to the original spouse with whom they had begun their careers. Few remained in their faith. If the entertainers themselves hadn't fallen into drugs, gambling, and adulterating, their children had grown up with too many luxuries and were ruined for life. The import of the decision for me was mighty. My wife and I discussed every scenario, excited and fearful, willing and able, yet cautious and worried. Let's pause for a moment. What would you do? Imagine your in-laws still think your marbles are missing. They love you but are fearful about whether you're going to make it. A legitimate concern. Imagine that your pipe dream career isn't to be and you will eventually be getting a real job. You'd have to. Imagine that your old peers from school asking when you are going to take things seriously and go to college and get your degree like they did. How about your neighbors and church members asking when you're going to make something of yourself and just keep this hobby thing going as a side deal? Imagine that your family is still living paycheck to paycheck because you're doing one-off jobs and gigs that are offered on a very inconsistent basis, although you can feel there's momentum in your new career. Now imagine you have very little income, no health insurance, no home, are renting your grandma's house, and have very few supporters who believe you can make it. And you are sitting in a room with a bunch of Las Vegas producers, managers, and a hotel billionaire who actually believes you can make it. Writing this now, 15 years after the choice was made, I often wonder what my life would look like had we signed the contract. Would we be in the same home? Would we still have our family? Would I be hoping for an upgrade to first class for my next flight? Would I have to cash out a 401k just because I had a down year? Probably not on all counts. Yet, when you or I are in the heat of the moment, with a decision to be made, how can you play Monday morning quarterback? Impossible. Unless you have made a promise. A promise that is unbreakable, non-negotiable, no matter what. The promise for me goes back to high school and the most humiliating moment of my someday hopeful career. It was the summer before my senior year of high school. I was so excited. Having been elected student body president, maintained an honor roll grade point average after repeating 9th grade, and received a scholarship offer to my dream school for basketball. I'm not sure I could have been much more on top of the world, but having discovered I was into singing and dancing at this late date as well, my game plan was changing. Basketball had been my focus, but after learning what my voice could do as a singer and how my body could express art as a dancer, my life was shifting quickly, from athlete on the court to vocal athletics on a stage. I spent a majority of that summer dancing and singing to my favorite musician's artistry. It was the mid-1990s, and I was a Michael Jackson fanatic. Back then we had VHS tapes, and I wore out every video I could find of Michael doing his famous dance moves, from the Fred Astaire tap dance to the Sammy Davis Jr. body contortions, and of course the otherworldly moonwalk. Subliminally, I made a promise to myself at some point in time that every waking moment would be spent working on dancing like Michael. At the time, this actually wasn't a popular thing, as allegations had arisen about him that tainted his legacy and damaged not only his own career but also the lives of the victims. However, as a teenager, all I wanted to do was figure out how he could move, dance, and perform in such an incredible way. I wanted to dance like Michael. With the encouragement of neighborhood friends who got a kick out of my undying practice regimen and ability to mimic, we would drive to the local snow cone stop at the corner grocery store parking lot. My friends would park their cars in a circle, turn the headlights on, crank the MJ music to full blast, and the unsuspecting crowd of teens waiting for their dessert on a summer's night were suddenly gifted a show by a street dancer. Disclaimer: Utah is not known for street dancers, let alone a street dancer asking for money. However, money was thrown our way. Yes, even enough for us to go to the movies. The dollar movies, but still, what a fun time that was. I continued my love for musical athleticism by attending a music and dance camp at Brigham Young University. BYU is a religious university owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of which I am a member. Attending the BYU Young Ambassadors Camp, I was very excited to meet other like-minded performers and have my chance to showcase what I could do. When the night of the audition for the talent show arrived, I listened in horror as people, far more talented than I, stood and sang operatic arias that rivaled Broadway, and these were high school kids at a camp. Backstage, I had planned to sing, but hearing the talent level, I knew I could do only one thing to wow the crowd. I handed the show producer my mixtape, put on my wig, fedora, and sequin glove, and courageously stepped onto the stage that would forever change my life. As the music boomed, I began to move. The rhythm and I flowed freely. I was in my element. This was all I had practiced the entire summer. This was my moment. The crowd cheered when it became apparent I was pretty good at mimicking Michael's moves. And then I did a move that Michael was infamous for and that no young man should do, let alone one at a religious university talent contest audition. Yes, that move. As I grabbed that area of my body, the crowd went silent and then burst into applause. I was thrilled, so I did the move again. More applause and cheering. My routine was now in full swing. Testosterone-induced rage mixed with artistry that had never been expressed on a real stage with lights. I had found my calling. As the medley of music came to a close, instead of simply ending with my arms out, as per another signature move of the great MJ, I chose something more dramatic that I had seen him do but had never tried. Spin, fall to knees, rip off shirt, high-pitched scream, stand, arms out. The crowd leapt to their feet. My peers, the attendees, were losing their minds. Clearly, I had received the largest, most impressive ovation of the night and was sure to win the contest the next night for the parents to enjoy. High-fiving participants who were now fearful to take the stage following the complete mopping of the floor with the show that I had done. I was on cloud nine. Hugs, cheers, they continued. And then I saw the camp director, the famous and acclaimed leader who had taught us all week. He wasn't smiling. I went for the old, "So, what do you think?" baiting him for the compliment I knew was imminent. Arms folded, he leaned toward me and said, "Young man, you are disqualified from the talent show." Stunned, I had no idea why or what he was talking about. "Why?" I protested. "I just received the best response of the night. In fact, no one has ever done anything as good as that on this stage. I just won the talent contest and it's over." He looked at me and said with power and authority, "You have been raised to know what is right and what is not. You know the standards of this school. You know who you represent as a man of God. That was the opposite of everything we stand for and everything you stand for. Just because the audience is cheering and encouraging those types of moves doesn't mean you should do them. You need to choose what type of performer you're going to be. You know better. You're disqualified." I had never been more incensed. Everyone else was confused as well. It was just assumed not only that I would get to be in the talent contest, but that I was going to win it. Instead, I went back to my room and sat on the bed, shirt torn, sweat dripping from my chest. I looked across the room at the window, only to see the reflection of myself. In this moment, I could choose whether I was right or he was. What a jerk. How embarrassing. What does he know? And I sat there, sulking, sad for myself, cheated, and then reflective, contemplative, and quite rapidly it was confirmed in my heart. He is right. I know better. I went too far. I should have never done those moves, even though the crowd was cheering and egging me on. My parents had asked me not to do those moves when they had caught glimpses of my practicing. My friends had suggested I may want to strike them from the routine, but I wanted the performance to be authentic and incredible. And I made the choice to go for it at that event, and they loved it. And yet, I actually knew better. Removing my shoes, setting my glasses, hat, wig, and glove on the floor, I reflected on my dream, concerned that I would be shackled my whole life with rules, commandments, and governance of some standard of living that felt completely unreasonable. But as I thought about it, I realized maybe those guidelines actually were the best for me to live by and fully commit to. And right then and there, I made a promise to myself, to the universe, to God, and to my own art, that I would never purposefully cross that line again on stage, and that my every move, word, and action would be appropriate for families to enjoy together. As I write this now, almost 25 years later, it brings tears to my eyes to think that was the very moment that defined my career. It was the first of many promises I made to myself, a non-negotiable, something far beyond a mere goal. It was the reason for every choice I've since made, every opportunity turned away, and the reason most people have never heard of me. And I couldn't be more grateful that in that very moment, I made such a promise to myself. What do you stand for? What offers, opportunities, and promotions have you turned away in order to stick to your guns? What moments have changed your life because you gave in, succumbed to internal or external pressures, or broke a promise? What do you believe in? If you can't make a promise and keep it, you very well may succeed in business, and you quite possibly can put on a show, but your soul will be empty. If you can't make a promise to yourself and keep it, you will live a life devoid of peace. The promise is a choice, a clarion call of character, an investment in integrity. Let's conclude where we left off, the Las Vegas choice. Did I make the choice when I was faced with the opportunity in Las Vegas? Ultimately, no. It had been made a decade earlier, alone, as a teen, in despair at the edge of my bed, following my performance in a Michael Jackson outfit, and then a firm resolve. It was perhaps a rite of passage, a ritualistic awakening of my heart. And when you go through something so profound and even traumatic, it forges the person you will become and the decisions you make from then on. As a young boy, I made a promise to myself that wouldn't be broken. And as a man being handed the golden key to my future, with my wife next to me in a Las Vegas casino and the world's greatest opportunity in front of me, there was no decision to make then and there. I already knew the answer. After more back and forth, I told the producers, directors, managers, and owners of what could have been my future, thank you, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I was told I'd never have that opportunity again, and they were right, as I have been blacklisted from headlining in the city. And that is why few audiences have ever heard of me, and that is why I can sleep at night, and that is why you're reading this book. That is the promise.